Have you ever paused and thought, I wish my life felt better than this? You've ticked all the boxes, but inside there's this hum of pressure, overwhelm, overthinking, or a sense that something is off. Now, if this sounds familiar, you're not alone and you're going to love this week's episode. I'm joined by Lisa Walker. She's the co-founder of Eir Women, and she shares how the sudden loss of her husband cracked her open and ultimately set her on a path of radical joy, reinvention, and choosing life on her terms. We talk about midlife as a turning point and not a crisis, about how to let go of control, perfectionism, and the invisible mental loads that many of us carry every single day. We also dip into pole dancing, convertibles, and why happiness, as Lisa says, is a choice. And it's also an inside job. Happiness is not found in your circumstances. It's built in your inner world, in your inner operating system. And that's the heart of the work that I do. I help self-aware people just like you stop spiraling, stop proving, stop performing, and finally start to lead from trust, clarity, and a grounded nervous system. So if something in you is whispering, there's got to be more than this, you're right. There is, and it starts here. Before we dive in, just one quick ask. If this conversation lands for you, if you feel seen, if it shifts something inside, please take a moment to hit subscribe or follow on the platform that you're listening or watching. That click helps this show grow and gets these stories into more ears, hearts, and minds around the world. Stories that remind us that we're not broken, we're just coming back to ourselves. Thank you for being here. Hope you enjoy this week's episode. Welcome to Limitless, Unlocking Your True Potential. I'm your host, Fiona Walsh, here to guide you on a journey of transformation and emotional freedom. Each week, we'll dive into the stories of change makers, cycle breakers, and experts in personal development, emotional wellness, and healing. Together, we'll uncover what holds us back and discover the tools to step boldly into a life of purpose and possibility. If this episode resonates with you, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Let's amplify these stories and create a ripple effect of impact. Your limitless life starts now. Welcome to Limitless. Today, I'm joined by Lisa Walker. She's the co-founder of Eir Women. She's a solo parent of 2 boys and a passionate advocate for midlife health, happiness, and living life well. Lisa's journey is rooted in personal loss, deep curiosity, and a fierce commitment to rewriting the story of midlife, not as a decline, but as an expansion. After years in health and beauty marketing, whilst also teaching a little yoga on the side, Lisa faced a sudden turning point when her husband, Ben, passed away. What followed was a personal reckoning and a conscious decision to live life every day as big and fully as possible. She's on a mission and she's building a heart-led, purpose-driven movement to help women feel normal again, especially in the thick of peri and menopause, overwhelm, and also the invisible mental and emotional load that so many of us carry. Lisa and I both grew up in Melbourne, Australia, and while I now call North Vancouver home, I know she also spent some time in her life in this incredible city too, and we first connected through the Powerful Steps community a few years ago. Lisa, I'm so grateful you're here, and I cannot wait to share your story, your humor, and your honesty with the Limitless community. So let's dive in.
Thank you for having me. I wish I was there in person with you in Vancouver.
That would be awesome. Be so fun. We jump straight in. I warned you. So take us back to that moment in time where you were at a turning point, a pivot point. You're like, I'm done. This stops here. What did that look and feel like for you?
Oh, wow. So it's a big moment, and there's probably a few of them, but I guess the one I really wanted to mention, I thought very deeply about it was at my husband's funeral. And, as you mentioned, my husband passed away 3 years ago. And before he passed away, I'd spent a lot of time I think the best way to talk about it is controlling a situation. And I was very tightly held in controlling my family and their life and what was happening with my husband. Plus, I was working full time in a really demanding role. And so, you know, you're trying to control every element of your life. And I was trying to make us seem as though we were the perfect family on the outside. Inside, we were really falling apart. And, you know, we sat at the funeral, and it was an interesting funeral for many reasons. And I looked around the room, and, you know, I had my two boys sitting with me. And at that point, I just thought, oh my God, my life needs to change. And not just because of their dad and my husband passing, but because of the life we were living and the people we were surrounded with. And it was just a huge sign of this is not where I am. It all has to move.
And what was going on in your internal, like your external world? Clear, you're at a funeral. What was going on in your internal world at that moment?
Internally, I just wanted to run. And in fact, I think I looked up house prices in Vancouver on that day. And people were like, I said, that's it. I need to change. And, you know, I've lived there before. And that was actually, I've got some really close friends there. And I just thought I need to be as far away from this life that I've been living as I can. And so I think it just became this. And again, you're going through, there's a lot of process and a lot of things that happen when a partner passes away or a family member or anything that you're involved with. And just as part of that process, I just thought there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way that I can live my life and help my boys live the best life they can now that they don't have a dad, but also to honor Ben. You know, we were very fortunate financially. You know, 6 months down the track, we sold a company. And whilst at the time, you know, we were very worried about money at the time because of the process that's involved through when someone passes away, when a spouse passes away. But, you know, we just had to make some big choices, essentially.
Yeah. And at that point in time, you had so much going on. Did you have a sense of what you desired, how you wanted your future to look and feel?
At that point, like I said, I really wanted to run and I wanted to. So Ben was a really happy person. You know, people loved him. He was really generous. He had a problem, which was alcoholism. But overall, you know, he was entertaining and the center of attention. And we were at a point where we were selling this company and, you know, it was a very successful company. And I just thought, far out, he's not here to enjoy this. You know, he's worked so hard for this. And he's not here to enjoy the fruits of all of his work. And so part of the thinking was very much, I want to live enough for the both of us and to show him that we can have a really adventurous life and to breed that sense of adventure into my boys and see the world and experience everything we can because we're so fortunate that we're in a position where we can do this. So, and that kind of led to this path that I ended up taking and, you know, it snowballed from there.
And so the path that you're on, it was, you were in your mid-40s sort of when this happened. So you were sort of already into midlife, in the swirl of midlife. And I know you're all about expansion and reinvention and all the good things, but tell me about, like, what did you realize about yourself in midlife when you were sort of at the rock bottom and the deep, darkest night of the soul kind of moments?
Well, number one, I realized it's me. It has to be me that makes this change. No one else can do this for me. It is a big change. And what was going through my head? I don't know. I have to live. I have to find that sense of adventure again I had in my younger years. I need to be able to find that element of play, which I think we have when we're younger. And even in my 20s, I traveled around the world and backpacked and we did all these things. And as you I just find, get into your 30s and it's very much about career and family and settling down. And, you're trying to meet these new, I guess, standards that are keeping up that you want to do. And then in your 40s, nowadays we have young families and we're still at the peak of our career and we're trying to spin all these plates. And then often we crash. And so as part of that midlife journey, it's like, your health is going to be the first thing that gives. And I just watched that happen with my husband. I could feel my own health deteriorating through stress. And so there's only one person can change that, and that's yourself. No one can do it for you. And that's where I just thought I need to do some things that just make me truly happy and bring me joy and show my boys that I can live that way, because that will rub off on them as well.
Yeah, I love that. And it's been a common theme in my coaching containers recently around like, we're all just too bloody serious.
Yeah.
Like people have genuinely forgotten how to have fun. Like, and I know that like lots of people used to party a lot, and that doesn't always work for people in their 40s because you feel terrible the next day and maybe just not your scene anymore. But like, yeah, I have been, one of the bits of homework for quite a few people I've given them is like, go and do something that lights you up, that has no physical or mental or emotional benefit other than to have fun. Because even people going to the gym these days, they're like, oh, because I want to do this and I want to hit this record and I want to run this half marathon. It's like, there's no fun in that either. It's all around these goals. And when you're there, unless you're like intentionally like forcing yourself to have fun, it's like, it's sort of, we've missed the point. Do you know what I mean? We're all about the outcome and not about the journey.
Exactly. And I think that's where and now there's so many different things you can do to find that sense of fun. And it isn't about the outcome, because it's living your life that is the purpose of life, is to live, is what I find so many people are out there trying to chase their purpose and figure out what their purpose is, where I'm like, well, actually flip that. Your purpose is to live, and to live in a way that brings you joy and kindness. And these are things that help you find happiness. It's not chasing some, big faraway goal, because that's not going to drive happiness.
Yeah, absolutely. And like for me as well, purpose and happiness, these are all in a game, in a world plays. And how did you move through that time? Did you have call in like different help, different therapy or psychology or anything like that to support you? Because it's so much easier said than done when you're in like a crisis like you were, to then come back in and recenter around, this is what I want, this is what I want for me and my boys, and this is how I'm going to live my life going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I was really fortunate. I had a lot of tools anyway. And I think having a background in yoga teaching really helped me more than I ever thought it could. And that was because I could sit in emotions, I could meditate, I really understood my body and how it reacted. And I did see a psychologist a couple of times, not a huge amount. I didn't do a huge amount of therapy until actually more recently I did a little bit more. But, even when I saw, there are a few key things that therapists helped me with. And the first one was, she said very early on that what people don't understand is that you have been grieving a long time. So other people were starting their grief process the day that Ben passed away. I'd been grieving him for much, much longer, because I'd already watched the downhill and I knew it was going to happen, or I felt it was going to happen. And that's what I'd been trying to control for so long. So my path through grief was very different as well. And grief is not linear. There's no way through it. There's no right. There's no wrong. People didn't like the way that I was showing my grief, but then they didn't see me. They don't see what's going on in the background and behind closed doors. They only see the person that you put out there. And then, I did see a therapist a little bit further on, and, he's like, you're doing all the things that I would have asked someone to do. And that's to find that path, find those elements of joy, help find your purpose, and things like meditation. And, I'd started the business, and, frankly, starting Eir Women probably did save me at that point, because it is built around joy and care and helping other women. And, that was amazing for me because it gave me focus, but also it was focused about something I'm really passionate about, which is midlife health.
Yep. One of the things you mentioned a couple of times is at that time you were in patterns of control. And I think control is such a huge topic for so many people in my community who listen every week, and it comes up in most conversations as well. Can you walk us through like where you're at, like how it's evolved for you and maybe how you like notice the control pattern show up even today, and, you know, how do you respond now to maybe how you did in the past, knowing that these patterns rarely disappear completely, but they always...
My boys are probably saying very controlling, but I've got 2 boys. They need all the help they can get. Yeah, it is. It's hard because I'm definitely far more authentic now, and I've always been a little bit more of a oversharer and venter, so that helps. I think it's just sitting back, and now I recognize it. So I can really sit there and say, oh my God, you're really trying to control this narrative. This is not okay. And you just got to get yourself out of the headspace, but go do something that really gets you out of that control. And the biggest, I mean, that's like anything. The first step is understanding that that is something that you turn to naturally, and understanding yourself and seeing it in yourself is the first step to trying to undo the damage.
Yeah. And it is a coping mechanism as well. So it's interesting how different people it shows up. Like sometimes it might be in pleasing, or it might be in perfecting if you've got perfectionist tendencies and things like that. But yeah, it's such a fascinating journey that most of us are on and will be on.
Yeah. And, I'm the eldest child. I was always looking up to my brother. I was on my own a lot as a child, and I've always been really independent. And so I think that it all leads from somewhere. I think as long as you can recognize where it came from and why you're doing it, that's half the battle.
Yeah. Tell me about what you were like as a little girl.
Well, my mum will tell you that she used to say to me, I'm the parent, you're not the parent. And then I don't know. I just was typical eldest child. I knew everything, and I looked after everybody, and I was fiercely independent.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I have to ask my mum that one. She was just like, you were an old soul, always. Knew you were
Always
an old soul.
Yeah. And a real caretaker sort of mothering figure in your family.
Yeah. Well, my parents were really young. They were babies themselves, and they had me. My mum had me 2 weeks after her 21st birthday. So I couldn't imagine, doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's interesting as well, like the research that you're doing around midlife now, because when the majority of people are actually having kids, because it's sitting later in our lifespan, it's interesting how it's also, instead of maybe in our 20s, when I think we're actually optimum levels to actually be having kids, we're leaving it later. But it's also when a lot of our careers or businesses, depending on which route you're on, really start to and take off too. Which from the research and the work that you've done on middle life, is that one of the like reasons that people sort of find themselves in a bit of a pressure cooker in midlife?
Well, I think so, because if you think about it, we're hitting our early to mid 40s now. We usually have young kids, whereas, a generation ago, our kids would be pretty much grown up or late teens by then. So as an example, I was 43, I'd started having a few symptoms from perimenopause, but I had a 3-year-old and 5-year-old. Our 40s are when we're usually at the peak of our career. You're in senior level positions. You're trying to manage that and a family, which is never easy. We've generally got parents that are starting to age as well. So you find yourself needing to step in, or, just be needed a little bit more to help with your parents. then, you're trying to balance everything. And then all of a sudden your hormones start changing as well. And women just think they're becoming a bit crazy because, you sit in a meeting and you can't even remember the answers to questions anymore that that you've been doing forever. So it's just a really challenging time. And I think what's really positive is that women are talking about it now. Whereas even when I was at that age, even 3-4 years ago, people weren't even understanding that you could be in your early 40s and have these changes in your body because of hormonal changes. So at least that discussion is happening now, and being aware is, the first step to making change.
Yeah, I was reading something recently where it was an older millennial like I am just saying thank you to the gen just above us of women who have really paved the way and really cracked open the discussion. So I'm 44, so in my early 40s as well, almost mid. And the conversations that I have with my friends, this is normal. This is how are your kids doing at school? Talk about hormones, you know what I mean? Or what supplements are you taking? It's just become everyday speak, which is so awesome.
Yeah. And I actually would thank your generation coming through, because I would find, I talk about it to everybody, but that's because that's the business I'm in. But a lot of women in their 50s still aren't talking about it in the same way. Whereas I'm very thankful to the elder Gen Y coming through, and the millennials coming through, because they're so used to talking about everything in their life, and it being open and on social media and authentic about those experiences, that's allowing that growth and chatter about perimenopause, which wasn't happening before. So it's really wonderful to see. And we're seeing that conversation happen even younger now in their mid to late 30s, which never would have happened, when I was at that age.
Yeah.
God, I sound so old.
Wise. I call it wise. No, not at all.
Back in my day. Yeah. When I was in my day. Yeah. God, terrifying.
I was thinking before when you were talking about how you were just choosing you to go forward and and your sons as well, because I can tell your part of your life purpose is to be their role model, as it is for all of us as parents. And it reminded me of Brene Brown once talking about midlife and how it's not a crisis. When I grew up, midlife was talked about as a crisis. And, my dad got this sports car, and it was hilarious because he ended up putting his back out trying to get into it and had to get a different car, which was just so ironic. But those kinds of stories were the midlife crisis that I grew up hearing about. And even with menopause and perimenopause, hearing about these change of life babies, which I thought were these magical babies, but now I know exactly what's going on. But we had all these, I don't know, in the past, we weren't always totally raw and real about what the hell was actually going on. There was stories about it or analogies of ways of speaking and things like that. But when I heard this thing from Brene Brown, it really clicked with me. And this was in my late 30s, I think it was, where she was talking about you sort of hit this fork in the road in midlife, and you either just put your head down and keep doing what you've always done and sort of hope for the best, or you sort of listen to the universe. I'm going to quote her. She says, the universe is grabbing you by your shoulders and saying, I'm not fucking around. All of this pretending, performing, and proving, and the armor or the mask that we're carrying has to go. And it was that quote alone was one of the things that sparked me to be oh my God, this is my work to do. And it really resonated with me before when you said that, because it felt like you were really choosing you, but choosing you for the future you as well in today, and what you could do to become the best version of you for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And I'm all for buying their sports car. Do it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Far out. If that brings you joy, it's better than some of the other behaviors that people could do. If that's what's going to make you happy and give you that sense of freedom and life and living, then go buy the sports car. I bought a convertible, so
awesome.
it's
fun. And cars are fun as well. And yeah, they're fun.
I had a little mini convertible, and I love
it.
Love him so much. And you've got to find it. Find the joy.
Absolutely.
So, I tell everyone I'm living my midlife crisis and I'm loving it.
Do you feel like you're in a crisis or do you feel like you're in an expansion?
I'm in an expansion. This is my year of expansion. And part of that is reading and understanding myself and doing much more work on myself. So that's what I've been doing really this year. And it's spiritual, it's growth, it's learning about happiness. Like I said, I've been studying happiness a lot more. And that's where the expansion is. We've got the rest of our lives to live. Then you need to have the tools to do it in a way that is fulfilling and drives excitement and joy of life.
Yeah, and I know that you recently did with your business, you did a survey on happiness. Yes. So I wanted to just dive into that a little bit if you're happy to, around like what led you to create the survey and what are some of like the key insights that you can share with people listening?
Well, the reason we did it is because that narrative around perimenopause and menopause has been so negative. And I just didn't feel that was the true story because, we talk to women every day and there's little things like the drop in estrogen means that our level of care drops. And so I'm excited by that because I don't want to have to care about everything and everyone. It's like you kind of let go a little bit of that. I even said to my boys, you need to take care of that yourself. I'm not doing all of it for you. Whereas in the past, kind of he wants to do that. And that's driven in part by estrogen. So there's so many joyous things. You start getting time back. You can do them all. My boys, I'm a sole parent, but my boys are a little bit older now. So I can go out for dinner with my girlfriends and leave them at home. And so you start to find those little ways to get a bit of time back yourself, which I've never had since the boys were babies. So we really wanted to understand health and happiness for women over 40 was really key to us. And partly because we obviously we're a supplements company, but we talk a lot more than that. It's about joy and health and living the best life that you can. So we really wanted to, and then I read the World Happiness Report, which is something that's put out every year. And there was this huge gap in it. And there was a whole part of information and research around people in their 20s and then over 60s. And there was nothing that talked to midlife at all, let alone women in midlife. And so I thought, well, surely we can find some information out. And that was because I was researching happiness at the time. I'm like, how does the World Happiness Report not talk about midlife at all? And I even ran it through AI. Like, am I missing something? And like, no, there is nothing in here that talks to midlife. And it's like, that's a huge gap. It was between 30 and 60-year-olds that there was nothing on. And so that kind of drove our thinking of, well, we've got our community. We want to learn more about them. We want to help. We want to understand what is making women happy. So we ran that survey and, it was over 400 women. I think just under 300 were between 40 and 50. So we started to drill down into what those themes were. And the biggest one is what we've already spoken about. It's the overwhelm. So overwhelm is the number one driver of unhappiness for women between 40 and 50. So it's nearly 77% of women are feeling overwhelmed. And it's no surprise. And that's driven through their career and family mostly. So it's no surprise. I mean, we already thought that was the case, but, really interesting to get those results. And then even over 50, similar levels are still around 70% of overwhelm, but it shifts a little bit more into financial pressures as they're thinking about retirement and because their kids have often left home and also about aging parents. So then that's still driving the overwhelm. So, you've got this 20-year period where women, over 70% of women are feeling overwhelmed. So how do we navigate that? is probably a question, but really interesting insights to work through.
Yeah, that's incredible. And did people get specific around the definition of overwhelm, or did you guys as well? Just because it's kind of catch-all phrase in many ways.
It is. And I think we want to do a little bit more around focus groups and really getting tight to it. We have a lot of quotes around it that we've pulled out, which I don't have off the top of my head. But
no, that's good. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but yeah.
It's really driven around those key areas. And I don't know whether it leads back to control and just trying to do everything, but there's just so much on women's plates because, I always say, and my generation specifically, Gen X, we were the first generation of women that were told from a very young age, you can have it all, you can do it all. And you probably heard that as well.
I've used my story about that.
We were always told
on this podcast so many times. I was like, I remember sitting in an all-girls school in Melbourne, and they were saying to us, you're going to be the first generation, but I was, a few years behind you. And I latched onto that story. And one of my big turning points in, around 40 after I burnt out was like, I have to let go of that story because it is so far from my reality.
And for most women.
And I'm never going to get close to it. So, and so many people, yeah. And then I got honest with myself and I was like, I actually don't want to be a CEO or an executive anymore. And that was what sort of, has led me down to here we are in Limitless and I'm coaching and I'm doing, I work my own hours and I do not do what I want, but do you know what I mean?
And you're probably still working 7 days a week, but at times that work for you. I mean, I do.
And it's passion and purpose work rather than, a lot of work in corporate. You end up doing stuff that you actually don't really want to do and doesn't light you up, but you just have to do it. So,
yeah, and I think that's part of, particularly in your 30s, you're chasing, and I know I did. I was chasing to reach a certain level before I had kids.
Yes, I was sprinting.
Yeah. And then you have kids and then you get to mid-40s and you have that realization of actually you can't have it all, or you can, but the 3 things, family, career, and health, the one thing that's going to end most quickly is your health. Yeah. And, from what I've noticed around me and men and women is the choices that you make in your 40s really are the big choices because that's what's going to lead to your health span for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Coping mechanisms around stress and obviously alcohol and over exercising these, there's a healthy level of exercise, but there's also a level where it can really affect your quality of life as you get older. So you do need to really start to put your health as number one.
Yeah. And what I found fascinating just like in the last 6 months is learning that women have not been researched much compared to men in all walks of life in the medical research world. And so there's a lady who's been on Mel Robbins' podcast and a few others, the Diary of a CEO. She's just come out this week. Her name's Tracy Sims and she's from New Zealand and she's just blown up what women have been doing in terms of food and nutrition and how we work out and how we sleep and how we do everything because she's like, you are not little men. Is what she says. You've been trying to do little men fasting and exercising on no food. And she was like, you're and we know our bodies are completely different on the inside. We have children. So it's been but I feel it's, and I feel for me as well, personally having neurodivergence in our family, there's so much more for my son than there would be if I was trying to look at it through the lens of my daughters, just because it hasn't been researched. So have you found that as well in just the body of work that you find yourself in these days?
Yeah, well, I mean, no medical research was ever done on women until the mid-90s because you can't have a control group of women because our hormones are so up and down. So that's an impossible task if you're a researcher and you're just trying to get some clinical research done really quickly. So, you've got to look at the longer term research studies. You've got to think more around our hormones. And, we work more on a 28-day cycle, obviously, than a male who works on a 24-hour cycle. So there's so many different ways that, women's bodies work. And the great thing is that it's being talked about more, and but it's always going to be a really tough question around how you have control groups with women and do these clinical trials, because for most companies, they're just trying to get a product to market or show that their product works.
Yeah. Yep. Quickest way there. When you were in your survey and stuff, when people were talking about burnout, was health and well-being the most obvious sort of symptom that people reported in their leading up to burnout and overwhelm?
Yeah, they didn't even talk to burnout. It was just feelings of overwhelm.
Yeah. Overwhelm over a long enough period of time hits burnout. So
yeah. And what we found is, and I think because most of our questions then were leading to what makes you happy, and it's really the small things that make people happy. It's listening to the rain, having my cat purring on my lap. It was having dinner with a girlfriend, and it really leads to that conversation around what does make people happy, and what drives long-term happiness. And you meet a lot of people that are out searching for happiness, or they're trying to do something really big so that they'll be happy. And the biggest driver of happiness is making a choice to be happy. And that's something that you can change. It's a muscle. It's a mental muscle, like anything.
Can you say that again? Because that was a really important statement.
That you make a choice to be happy.
Yeah.
It is the number one researched way that you can be happy.
It's your choice.
It's your choice. So there's a really nice saying around that.
I've got goosebumps. So powerful.
It is.
Sorry to interrupt.
There's so much research. 50% of our happiness is inherited. And part of that is because of the way our brain processes emotions through the limbic system, but also the people that you're influenced by. So your family, your friends, your faith, that all drives levels of happiness. But yes, absolutely. To make that change, you make the choice to be happy. And so the saying I love is, it's wanting what you have versus having what you want. So you need to have that gratitude practice and happiness around what you've already got. And that is the number one driver to happiness. And that will flip the switch for everybody who wants to be happy.
Yeah. I love that. I do gratitude before bed every single night. And it's one of the key things I get in my coaching containers people to do, because a lot of people are not doing it.
And it's so simple, and people just don't think of it. They just think, it's just, it's just writing down.
Yeah.
And honestly is the one thing, it will move the needle.
Everyone's got a gratitude journey that's been gifted to them over the years. And they're like, I'll dust that off and I'll bring it out. And then it's really fascinating because I always get them to also be really clear on the feeling the emotion that came through when they were for what they were grateful for. Because there's, from a neuroscience point of view, when you connect the two, it's a deeper connection. Yeah. And it's really fascinating to look at patterns over time and be like, oh my God, I remember when I did it was when I was on my last stretch in corporate, and of 40 days, and I think I had one entry about my work. And I was like, the writing it was on the wall. And I was like, the writing, that's signed, sealed, and delivered. Because I was like, I'm not appreciating or grateful for what I have at work. And you spend so much of your life working. And at that stage, I was having the mum guilt and the work guilt because I didn't feel like I was giving enough to either, because my expectations were way too high on both fronts. But if you're not getting any gratitude or appreciation or fulfillment or happiness out of one bucket, then it's sort of back to the drawing board. And as you say, that was my choice that I was empowered to make.
Yeah.
But I must, I feel like choice like that is really interesting, because so many of us, when we're stuck and it's feeling hard and we're driven by fear, we fall into this victim mindset around it's too hard and I can't do it and poor me. And I'm not poking fun at anyone because we have all been there and I've been thick in it. Wow. Especially when my kids were really young. I had 3 kids in 2 years. But you have like the other side, which is the choice side, which is the like, you have the ability to make a choice for happiness. You are the creator of your future. So if you don't like what it looks like today, like how would you like it to look in 12 months' time?
And no one else can make you happy. It's internal. No one can do it. So you have to make your choice. If you want to be happy, just do it.
Yeah.
But you do need to be doing little things. And it's the little things that drive happiness. It's, sitting outside and having a cup of tea, looking, sitting in the sun. It's laughter from your kids. They're little things. And it's being cognizant of all of those little things that will ladder up and push you up into happiness.
Yeah. Those little like glimmers throughout the day. And it's interesting with glimmers because it's like I link it to gratitude practice. Once you start to look for them, you slow down, which is part of most of our problem that we're all going way too fast and hustling our way through life.
Yeah.
But when you do slow down, you're more present in the moment. You're like, oh my God, there's the coolest bird. I'm like, not a bird person, but that's a really cool bird. Like, we're up in Whistler on the weekend and there was a Stella Jay. I don't know if you remember them. It got this black spiky hair and these bright blue wings, like the color of your sweater. And I was just like, for like a few minutes, my twins and I, my girls, we just sat there and watched this bird. And I was like, afterwards, we were all like, that was so cool. And like, I would not have done that 5 years ago.
And they'll remember that forever too, that moment. So
yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful.
What things bring you happiness right now in your life?
Definitely laughter, the sound of my boys, if they're laughing, the sound of my friend, my business partner, if, she laughs, she's got a great laugh. Just doing yoga, pole dancing. I took up pole dancing. That brings me so much joy. It's hilarious.
That is awesome. Is it a lot of fun?
It looks so like much fun. I'm not good, just so you know. I mean, I do post it on social, but, I'm a 51-year-old woman in, little undies and top with a bunch of 20-year-olds. And, it's not quite the same trying to hang upside down by one leg, but it's fun. And again, it's play, it's exercise, and it's the hardest exercise I've ever done. But it has that element of play to it. And, there's a bunch of women in a room together and some blokes as well, which was awesome. And you're all cheering each other on, and there's all shapes and sizes. It's not about being sexy. It's about, being in charge of your own body and understanding your body and driving that confidence. And I think that's what's been really fun about it is just do something different. And also, it builds strength, it builds flexibility and joint mobility and all of these things we need in our 40s in one neat little package that's also lots of fun. So,
yeah, I love that. It's really interesting with certain forms of exercise. It can also be fun, because when I first moved to Vancouver 13 years ago, yoga was huge here. It was like pretty much the yoga capital of the world.
Yes.
And
always has been.
Because you were here similar time. Yeah. And like I got into it, but where I was in my life, I was like in the room and trying to do all the moves and in my head, like, oh my God, everyone around me is so much better. And like the inner critic was just on like so loud and like overstretching all the things, trying to do. And then when they'd be like trying to do, sometimes they try and get you to do a new pose, which is you've just got to experiment with it and you've got to be a bit silly because you are going to fall over or you're just like not even going to get close.
Yeah.
And I just remember being so hard on myself, and I check myself now at yoga. I tend to go each Saturday, and I just love that I'm like, I do not give a fuck anymore. Like I'll be like going for it. If someone falls on my mat, I'm like, high five. You know what I mean? Like, you're just like, and in your body rather than in your mind, like,
and some of those classes can be really serious. And I've, done yoga over there as well and here. And, but again, that's not what it's about. It's about being in your body and understanding and having fun. And my favorite classes when I was teaching were doing handstands, which it's just fun. And it's play because no one's going to stay up and you're doing it against the wall and you're being a kid again. And that's what's fun. And it's brave. And for some people, that's really hard to go upside down and have that faith that your arms can hold you up. But there's got to be ways that we just introduce a little bit more play and risk and just be silly.
Yep. Are you a real experimenter in life? Like I know you mentioned adventure, and is that sort of been a common theme in your life since you? Oh no,
Never.
Is it relatively new?
I was always really risk adverse. I mean, I traveled, but I was always risk adverse. I never did anything that was remotely scary. I think it was, and that was my fear, was of being seen. So yes, I was always a leadership, the adult in the room, the responsible person. But I was always, even in my roles in marketing and corporate, I was always behind the scenes and I never wanted to be in front. I never wanted to be really noticed. And that is probably what's flipped a little bit. I still don't love being the center of attention and never have. But I was always risk adverse. I never would have put my hand up to do even treetop adventure type things, because I wouldn't want to look silly in front of people.
Yeah.
Whereas now I think, and part of my year of yes was that I'm just going to do whatever anyone asks me to do and give it a go. And I don't care if I look silly anymore. And again, links to estrogen drops and not caring. It's all secular. And, that's what drives that joy, is not caring what people think of you and just giving everything a go.
Yeah. And so for people who, this is the first time listening to you and your story, can you explain what your year of yes was? I know people in Australia probably read about you because you're in the media, but there's lots of listeners all over the world. So can you explain?
Yeah, well, so I had the year of process, which was the year after being passed away.
Yep.
And then on my 49th birthday, I just moved house and moved to a new area of Sydney where we didn't know anyone. Boys were starting a new school. There was a lot of, and I launched a business all in 3 weeks, as you do.
As you do.
Don't do anything by halves. It's get in there and just do it. And then I just thought I need to do something else. And I need to put myself out of my comfort zone because I've just moved to this area. I'm a new person now. I'm single. I'm in a new house, new location. And I just thought I can either sit here and hide in my house because I was working from home because we didn't have an office, or I could just get out there. So I thought, I didn't tell anyone. I just said, I'm just going to say yes, start saying yes to things. And previously, as part of my marriage, a lot of the time I was saying no. And that's where it came from. Is I would say no to going out for dinners because I wanted to be at home with my boys and make sure everything was okay. So I started writing, yes, I'm just going to say yes to things. So there was even little things. I just, right, today I'm leaving the house with my dog and I'm going to say hello to everyone I walk past on the street. So I did that, and that's quite simple. She's really cute. Everyone loves her anyway. And then a mum at our new school asked me out for a coffee. I said, yes, I'm going to make myself do that. And I was invited, just coffee dates. Obviously, it was when I started the Powerful Steps program as well. It was all at the same time. So I was like, right, I'm on this, join the program, start meeting people. Someone would say, come to this event in the city, a dress up event at a ball. And I'm like, oh God, I don't know one person apart from you, but sure, I'll give it a go. So it started off really small, but then I think about 6 months in, I started telling people a little bit about it. And then it just kind of escalated and people got silly and had these messages saying, from girlfriends saying, come and have a snail facial with me. And I'm like, okay, new rule. If I'm doing anything, if I'm saying yes to anything, so you are going with me. Whoever suggests it is coming with me. So that one didn't happen, but it was Kate, my business partner, who actually suggested pole dancing, and which I never would have tried. And I'm like, oh God, okay, I'll give it a go just because you want to. And I kept going and she didn't. So it was just lots of little things. Anything that, we were both grew up in Melbourne. I'd never really been in the MCG apart from work. And so I was invited to the cricket and I was like, oh God, cricket, how boring. But I'm here in Melbourne. You've asked me to go. I'm going to go. So, like I said, little things, but it's like choosing happiness. They all add up. And so, yeah, it became this thing, but it completely changed my life. Because I chose joy. I chose adventure and joy and laughter and doing and letting go of control. I did all of that, and that's what, brought it all home.
And I think the fascinating thing is when people do say yes, or they try new things or put them in spaces or places that they normally would not go out of fear or control, is that you're little by little, you actually were building this muscle and this capacity in you. So now when someone's like, do you want to catch up for do this? You're like, absolutely. Because so it's like, I love that what you did, because you may not have realized what you were doing in the moment, but like retrospectively, it's like, wow, I created this whole new part of who I am and how I show up in the world every single day.
Absolutely. And it completely changed my life.
Yes.
So, which is good.
Yeah. Have you got any crazy things coming up that people, or have the challenges stopped because you're out of that year, or are you still just like going for it?
Every now and again they'll come up. Not as much now. I think everyone got a bit bored of it. They knew they're like, oh, we're too scared to suggest something now because we know you'll say yes.
Yes, exactly.
So no, but I think what it really opened me up to is, it's like that whole green light process, right? It's that take the opportunities, take what the universe is showing you, and just do it. I think that's what it allowed me to open my eyes more and be more receptive to what was going on around me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, I asked one final question, Lisa, and then we go into some rapid fire questions, which puts you in the hot seat, but don't worry, you'll be fine. So I often say that transformation happens in these like small incremental steps, like your year of yes. It's rarely these big leaps, it's micro movements that allow us to access, deeper versions of ourselves and unlock sustainable change. Based on your journey today, what's one small step that you can share with our listeners to help them to unlock their limitless potential in life?
It would be, the number one would be to just make a choice to be happy and understand that it is your choice to make that.
Yeah, I love that. That was your mic drop moment in this recording. I was like, hang on a second, can you say that again? Because I had not heard anyone phrase it like that before, and I was like, wowie. Okay, let's do rapid fire. What's one thing you're deeply grateful for right now?
My boys and my fur family and everyone surrounded by.
You're beautiful. What's one leadership lesson that the world keeps throwing back at you to learn and relearn and relearn and relearn?
That you don't have all the answers and you need the right people around you who have those answers.
Yeah, that's powerful. And what's one common misconception that people have about you?
That I have it under control.
Well, maybe you trained them over all of the years to have that because you were.
I know, it's my own fault.
You need to start dropping plates and then they're like, whoa, Lisa.
Oh, the boys know that I don't have anything under control. I've trained them well. I don't remember anything at school. I'm the one who forgets parent-teacher interviews. I'd be like, boys, I can't do everything. You need to take this. So
yeah, I love it. And when you hear the word limitless, the name of this show, what are 3 words or feelings that are evoked for you?
When I hear it limitless, it's really about internal for me. It's that everyone is limitless, but you've got to rely on your internal systems to do it. You can't rely on somebody else.
Yeah, that's 100% of the meaning behind the show as well. So that's beautiful. And finally, Lisa, if you're feeling a bit low, you need to raise your mood or vibration, what's your go-to song that you pump in your convertible Mini?
Oh, I don't know. Anything loud.
Anything loud. Has it got a good sound system?
I do have in my car that we call Black Betty. And so I do play Black Betty.
Oh, yeah. That Black Betty song. Yeah.
Yeah. Or the
That's
Kilos.
a banger.
The Kilos is always the best one. played that. That'll always get everyone jumping up and down. There's
Jumping
always
up and down.
a few really key ones that dry appeal. But I mean, I just like music I can dance to, embarrass my boys. It's full of joy.
Oh yeah. I think dance is one of those things that can like just spark that silliness and playfulness as long as you like get out of your head and just enjoy what's going on in your body. It's like an absolute life hack to changing how you feel every single day.
Yeah, Kate and I just discovered silent discos, and that was it's so much fun. Going to another one in a couple of weeks, and that's the best. And they start at 6 o'clock and finish at 9. It's the best.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So fun. Yeah. Well, Lisa, I'm like so grateful for this interview today and for you sharing your story and all your pearls of wisdom. I know that everyone listening will have taken away so many different things, particularly that happiness is your choice. So make that choice today and really be intentional about it. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's been lots of fun.
Thank you for tuning in to Limitless. If you enjoyed today's episode and love hearing the stories of courageous cycle breakers, I'd be grateful if you could leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Your feedback not only helps others discover the show, but it also amplifies our mission to unlock emotional freedom and true potential. Every review makes a difference in helping more people embrace their limitless life.